welcome to the Rowover Podcast again. This week we're joined by Gareth. Gareth's doing a pretty epic journey this month for Movember. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and sort of introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Gareth Syphas. I rode at Brooks with Ben. Um, I rode at Brooks for sort of two chunks really, but did a few seasons. Won the Temple in 2017. Didn't really do. I've not done loads in the sport, but yeah, we rode together in 21,
22?
22 season, and then in the winter of 22, 20, because I stopped in the winter. And
Mhm.
yeah, so we rode together at Brooks. I mean, I've started running a bit really. It was kind of when I stopped rowing, I was like, okay, I'll try something. And running seemed to be the most appealing. It's just chuck your shoes on, go out for a run. And I've been doing kind of a few ultras and small stuff. And then Movember came, I joined a team and they were going and doing, they're going to do the Yorkshire Three Peaks, that's it. And I just thought, oh, well, I can't do that because I work at a school and it's in term time. So what can I do? And I kind of wanted to do something like that was going to run the whole month. So yeah, half marathon every day for November, and that adds up to 633k. So I've called it Project 633, which kind of is quite nice to put a name on it.
Which is pretty
Just
mental as well. That's a
yeah,
huge thing. I remember when Henry Bloisy Brook did, was it a marathon a day for a week during lockdown?
yes, yeah. Bloisy's done a lot. Yeah, he's super impressive though. Like I mean, I what I do is I'm a bit newer to the ultra running stuff, but he's done some crazy stuff like Bob Graham Round, and he's done a few other proper like fell running ultras, whereas I've done a couple of ultras that not so much elevation, but yeah, no, he's very impressive.
Does that sort of stuff interest you? Would you do it in the future?
Yeah, I've signed up to do 100 miler next year, so
Oh,
yeah,
Mendel.
next
Nice.
July, so that'll be good. But yeah, so that's it. That's kind of the basis of the challenge is
Mhm.
half marathon every day, and it's obviously in line with Movember, so kind of it's around men's health, but it's I'm kind of uh sort of pinpointing men's mental health because I don't know, something that I'm passionate about. So
Mhm.
yeah, made sense.
Yeah, and that's something that your time at Brooks as well, you made it pretty clear that like that's something that you're keen on sort of voicing and
Mm.
letting people know about and sort of opening people's eyes to as well. Like you sort of opened that up to some people in the club that might not have been sort of
Yeah.
seeing that. And I think that's a pretty cool thing to have done as well, and the impact that you might have had on some of the guys in the club. So what do you think the steps were to sort of getting involved with that and learning about that yourself?
Um, well, my own experience really, like
Mhm.
that's kind of like with anything in life. I mean, it's difficult to kind of advise or not advise someone, but it's difficult to talk to someone about something authentically unless you've really walked the walk. And
Mhm.
yeah, I guess my own experience. I mean, it's probably good to a bit of a backstory and what happened and probably what it used to be like. And um, I I grew up in Oxfordshire, in Didcot. Had a really good upbringing, loving family. No, didn't ever go without. Fine, um, and I kind of always had, I guess, a bit of a. I was always worrying, and I was always down, and um, I don't really know what. I can't really put a finger on it. It wasn't like it stopped me doing anything, but anyway, I had these periods where I was quite down, and I'd obsess over stuff. Like um, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be like panicking about the thought of dying, and then
Mhm.
panic attacks and just weird stuff. And that was like at the age of like 10 or 9 or 10 or something like that. So a really deep thinker, really early on almost. And yeah, kind of went through my adolescence, had a few kind of issues and then episodes of being down and stuff like that. Usually happened when I had too much time on my hands, like summer holidays. Um, and then I think I can't really remember what it was, but basically something triggered me to be incredibly. I was just totally. I'd never experienced it before. It was like a panic attack, but kind of lasted forever. It felt like it lasted forever.
Mm.
And it was all around. I mean, there's no point in me saying that people need to be honest and open if I'm not going to be myself. So, um, I it was around the time my brother came out, and love Scott to bits. We're really close. My brother came out, and I think he was 14 or something, and I was 16, and because we're two, so I'm one of two. He came out as gay, and as ridiculous as it sounds, I had a complete meltdown, and I convinced myself that I was gay as well. Not that
Mm.
it's an issue, but I was like, "What? My mum's not going to have any grandkids. I'm going to be gay as well, and like, it's not. How is it? It can't work because we can't both." And then I had a girlfriend at the time, an ex-girlfriend, and I was like, but I'm with this girl, and I think I'm gay, but I'm not. And I would be like looking at people in the street, like, how are they so happy? I wish I could just be like them. And anyway, I had to go to the doctors. So I went to the doctors, and they diagnosed me with OCD and depression. Um, and at the time, I went through counselling and stuff. They don't really they don't give kids medication.
Mhm.
Anyway, it got better. And then or it got as better as it could. These episodes kind of came and went. And then I went to sort of sixth form and then uni, and I started rowing. Um, and when I started rowing, it was the weirdest thing. I just felt like I had a purpose, or I had something that I could really like use my, I guess, obsessive. The more I did, the more praise I got, and it was like, oh, cool, right. So I just did loads, and then through my years at Chester, I was coached by Paul Turner there, and he sort of, I mean, he did loads for me. I'm sort of really close to Paul still, but he led me down the road to Brooks, and then I went to Brooks, and I loved it. Um, and all of these like mental health things just kind of faded away a little bit. Um, and I was all right for a period of this time when I was rowing, and um, I stopped rowing. Obviously, after 2018, we did the Temple, and then the next year did a few bits. I missed out on the eight just, and that was tough. But then I was like, right, I need to earn some money because I was skint.
Mm.
Um, so I stopped rowing, and I just sort of over a period of months and years just deteriorated completely mentally. As I said, OCD and depression. So I luckily really don't suffer with anxiety massively, but it means that, I mean, OCD is a funny one. And I was thinking earlier when I was running, I was thinking, oh, how can um, I want to talk about OCD a little bit because if what I would love is people to just kind of change their use of language around OCD.
Mhm.
People, you always hear people, they're like, oh, I'm so OCD because I've got to clean stuff or what. And that's just, you just like stuff being clean, and that's
Mm.
great. But it's really, OCD is a real, it's a weird one because of that language, I believe people don't really know what it is.
Mm.
Um,
Well, I guess it's obsessive compulsions, isn't it? And sort of when you
yeah,
break it down, it's actually that's not about cleaning at all. It's about you're obsessively doing things and
yeah.
then acting in a way that you can't control.
Exactly. So it's what's going on in your head. Anyway, my so you've got kind of a couple of different, I guess, areas of OCD. You've got your kind of behavioral based stuff and your thought based stuff. I fall into the thought-based stuff. So I don't know. We all have these weird thoughts, right, that pop into our head, intrusive thoughts. You might be drinking a cup of tea and you think, I'm going to throw it in someone's face, or something like that, like something just weird, right? And
Yeah.
so most people can just go, right, cool, I thought that, but I'm not going to do it and leave it. Whereas if I have that thought, it leads me down. I will be thinking, oh my God, I've just thought that I really want to hurt this person. That makes me a terrible person. I'm I'm obviously an awful person because I want to do this. Oh my God, am I going to hurt anyone more than that? Am I going to end up killing someone? Am I going to go to, and it leads you down that, like, you're like trying to explain everything with questions in your head and you can't let go of these thoughts. And for example, the person that might have the behavioral stuff, they may, and I'm not a professional, I will say that. The behavioral stuff is, I must make sure all the windows and doors are locked in the house. Otherwise, all of my family are going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Or I must make sure that I wash my hands obsessively or whatever it is. Otherwise, I'm going to get something awful and die. Like it's you just can't let go of stuff.
And I'm sure a lot of people know someone that has these sort of things, but sort of potentially less major or more even. But I know my girlfriend does a thing where she has to turn the lights off all across the house, otherwise the polar bears are going to die. And she goes,
Yeah,
I need to save the polar bears before I go to
yeah,
bed, and
yeah,
that's sort of her thing. But there's
yeah. So there's
yeah,
just it's just I mean, there's various different types, and there's no two cases the
mhm,
same, I guess. But yeah, so mine's thought based, and quite often it's the thought of harming someone close to me,
mhm.
and I can't. And it gets really dark. I won't go too into detail, but yeah, it's quite bad. Anyway, and the depression just leads because you just get lower and lower and lower. So that happened after Brooks. I was sort of out in the real world.
Mhm.
Didn't really have any direction. Was working a couple of sales jobs that I didn't like, but was just deteriorating. I mean, I was putting weight on. I got up to about 120 kilos. I mean, I walk around now like 95. Um, and I was drinking a lot. And that's a big issue for me is drinking. Um, and just over the period of course of kind of 1920, COVID happened, 21, even yeah, 21, those 3 years, it was just shocking. Like, it was bad. I treated people really badly. I was awful to myself. Yeah, no, I didn't want to be around. I really did not want to be around. And it was a weird one because I didn't really want to live, but I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to do it. It was it was really scary. It was just, I mean, like driving to work and like working out how, like thinking about driving your car into a tree or just something like that, or like I mean, it's, yeah, darker thoughts than that, but I won't go into it because it's not fair on if someone's listening and they're struggling and it triggers them. But um, yeah, I kind of got there, and then I was like, something needs to stop. Like, I am fat, I am really unwell, and my work wasn't going well. I just didn't know what to do, and I sort of started the car cleaning business that you guys, I mean, people know I did for a while, but it was just to try and escape the office, really. And then I went back to rowing at the same time at Upper Thames. Anyway, got better ish, sort of got. I was rowing at Upper Thames, and then I got a bit fitter, and I was all right, but I was still 100 odd, 105 odd kilos down from 120, um, and then kind of just made my way back really by getting myself back in shape. And yeah, and then I rang Henry and we had a chat about going back to Brooks. And we had quite a frank conversation. I think he wanted to basically make sure I was into it,
Mhm.
which was good. I was grateful for that because that's what I needed. Um, and then yeah, I came back to Brooks and I was feeling better and I was okay. And and I've always been an open and honest person about how I'm feeling. But and that kind of just transpired into me talking to people about it. Like, there's no shame in it for me. Like, I get really unwell. I can't do anything about that. I get really unwell, but I but I kind of know what works for me. I mean, I take medication now, so I'm on sertraline, and I have to take that because I've tried to not take it, and that was not great. So I know, and I speak to people, and I do various other things, and I just want people to know. I was thinking about this morning. I just want people to. I kind of want to be a mate. I want to be the friend or the person that someone would look at and go, I could talk to him, and because he knows how I'm feeling, or he will understand how I'm feeling. And I kind of just, the reason I put loads of stuff on social media, or I talk to my mates, or whatever it is, because I kind of just want to say, like, look, I'm here. I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one, because sometimes I share stuff and I think I don't really know how it's received. But at the end of the day, I kind of think, well, if one person looks at it and goes, I resonate with that, or it prompts them to talk to me, or whatever it is, and I'm not a professional, but I can tell people what my experience was, and what worked for me. And that basically, to go, sorry, that was really long-winded
No, thank you for
answer.
sharing.
That was a really long-winded answer, but all of that really is why. I mean, you put on your post mental health advocate or whatever I want to. I just want people to know that I'm kind of there, because I didn't really have a lot of people there. I had good mates. I've got really good mates, and I'm very grateful for them all. But I was in a really dark spot, and it's really tough to think. But no one's going to come out. No one's coming to save you. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche thing, but you've really got to sort of get yourself back on your own feet. And that's just, yeah, it led me to going back to Brooks and doing a bit there, and yeah, that was the reason why I try and just I lead by example, I guess. That's it. Like, I'm talking about it. It's cool. It's fine. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, and if I can encourage someone else to do that, then that's what I want. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and thanks for doing that and being that person that I know on social media and things like that. If I see you've posted something, it's either you've done some insane run or something, accomplished something pretty awesome, or it will be something like advocating for mental health and men's mental health and speaking out. And yeah, it always seems like a positive thing that you're sort of presenting. So thank you for sort of being that light, I guess.
Well, that means a lot to me, I think, and also the men's mental health thing. And we all know, like, I mean, I was organised for once and did some notes, but I mean, the latest figures I could find, 2021, just over 5,500 suicides. 3/4 of those are men. Biggest killer of men under the age of 45. We know these stats, but there's a lot of women out there that suffer, and yeah, Movember is a men's health thing, whatever. But in this discussion, I did kind of want to just be like and say it's not just a male problem. It is still 25% of those are women. That's a huge number. 15. I mean, my maths is not good, but whatever that is, 1,400. And women need to feel like they can talk as well. So it's yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to get that in there and just sort of make that clear that yeah, men's mental health is really important to me, but so is everyone's. Just mental health in general is really important. Yeah.
So I guess we could talk a bit about rowing, because that's pretty much who the main audience is then. What do you think could be done within sort of the rowing community to help promote this idea of mental health? And do you think there's changes that could be made to sort of help people in the future within the sport?
It's really tricky, isn't it? It's really tricky. I think and I thought about this. I thought about this a lot. I have thought about this a lot, but just maybe having someone available that someone can reach out to, or it being discussed. I think it's quite easy for coaches to shirk the responsibility. And that's not a blanket. And I'm not saying that anyone I know has ever done that, but I think it's quite easy for coaches to shirk that responsibility. But actually, I would like to see them take it on a bit more. Not to treat or whatever, because they're not professionals and whatever, but just having someone nominated maybe within the club, and people do, there's welfare officers and the like, but maybe just having a bit more of a clearer sort of pathway for them to seek help and a bit more support. I think it's weird in rowing, isn't it? Because it's such a mental sport. People think that if you put your hand up, you're going to be a weak racer, or you're going to be a weak link in the team. And maybe the narrative behind that needs, I don't know, they need maybe just more conversation, and like just people being honest with each other. But it's really hard if you're suffering. It's really hard to be open and honest, and it's the difficult one. It's a difficult one.
Yeah. And I guess sort of looking forwards into the future of the sport and into the future of just people as a whole, I guess, like, do you think there's changes that could be made within like your own groups, or things that individuals can do to sort of help push this out and sort of allow this? So you sort of mentioned like speaking up, making yourself heard, and sort of also making yourself available. How can people do that more to sort of welcome people in and say, speak to me if you have issues?
So within a club, you're talking about within a club?
Yeah. So how could I make myself heard and say I'm available to other people within the club?
Yeah, there's when I've been at work, there's always like mental health first aiders, like or something like that. And I think that's maybe something that you could introduce into rowing and into sport, is those mental health first aiders. So if someone's struggling and they need to put their hand up and say, look, I need help with it. Well, in terms of I need to talk to someone within rowing, maybe just having a mental health first aider, and it's and actually use them. That I think, and lead by example and talk about your own experience. I think that's a really powerful thing I've learned recently, is the best way to help someone that's suffering is to share your authentic experience. Tell them how what's happened for you. Do you know what I mean? What did it used to be like, or have you ever been unwell yourself, and how did you get back? And that's really powerful, I think. So just sharing your experience with one another, and just not, we all hear, don't we, all the time, like, oh, the stigma around males and mental health with men talking, and just in general. And I think that we all know about the stigma. You know what I mean? I think it was 3/4 of people, or 3/4 of men, knew the stat that suicide was the biggest killer in men under the age of 45. So everyone knows it. Everyone knows the facts, but there's not as much action as we need. Do you know what I mean? I think we all bang the drum of men's mental health, but it's the action. Do you know what I mean? It could be anything. It could be ringing your mate and going, "Oh, hi mate, I haven't heard from you for a while. How are you doing?" And just gauge what they say.
Yeah.
Just talk to people. It's really simple stuff. It doesn't have to be an uncomfortable situation or conversation. It can just be, "How you doing?" "Oh, I'm all right." "Well, no, how are you really doing?" And then it's okay. And then you have a conversation, and what's up? And it goes from there, really. It's no different to us having a conversation now.
Yeah.
You just lead each other on, and do you know what I mean? Or you just lead each other into sort of opening up. And I think that's a place to start.
Well, thank you, and I hope your sort of message there reaches a certain amount of people that can impact. Because I think that's a really important thing, that people need to sort of hear about and know about, and I'm going to sort of help you promote that this month, and sort of update people on how you're getting on. But I guess we've pretty much run out of content in terms of that. Something that I've wanted to do on Rowover is basically tell people's stories within the sport, because I think that's something that within rowing, and you've done rowing at a high level, you've won at Henley. What's one of your favorite stories from within the sport?
Oh, favorite stories. There's a lot. I mean, anyone that's been around Brooks knows that it's like a melting pot of stories, isn't there? Favorite stories. It's really difficult to single one out, I think. I think probably just, I mean, the year we won the Temple, and I will caveat all of this with a bit of humility and say, look, I am by no means an accomplished athlete compared to some of my mates. You know, like, I mean, you won the Visitors, you won the Temple. A lot of my friends are in the team. I know my place within rowing, and it was great, but I know that I, without putting myself down, there's far more talented people out there than I was. But my Temple year, that year as a whole is probably my favourite memory. It was good for a lot of reasons. But actually, just like, I mean, we were the first Brooks guys to go back to back. It just felt, it was hilarious, really. Like, we were just a bunch of nobodies, really. We were a bunch of nobodies. Like, I mean, we had Native, we had Will Hall, who was in the 2015 8 that lost, and then they won, and then but he missed out, and then he was in R8, and a few others. Chris Tebb, who's the assistant coach now at Brooks. And yeah, that year as a whole, we just had each other's backs. I think I spoke with someone about that year, and this probably, I don't know how appropriate this is, but it was like, we weren't the most talented, but we knew if we were in a bar and someone got into a scrap, we'd all jump in to sort it. You know what I mean? We were all there for each other, and that was really special, and it helped me actually through. I mean, that year was a bit of a weird one for me. My stepdad got really ill and passed away, and just that year, it like gave me strength, and it gave, and a lot of that year was, I was in my head, I was thinking, right, I just want to do well this year so that mum's got something that, do you know what I mean? Like, it was all a bit like that, and so that was really special that year. It was just, we just managed to make it click, and it worked. I mean, I mean, I don't really know what went right, but something went right, and we're all really close now. It's like, we've got a Facebook group that pops up most weeks, and all that sort of stuff, and it was a really special year as a whole. But yeah, as for like individual stories,
that's kind of what I was looking for in terms of what I want to try and do with this channel, I guess, is, I mean, everyone's got like a journey, and that sort of idea of like, it's just a group of guys, like, it's such a common thing, and I kind of want to just help make the sport relatable, and that's something that I wrote about recently. It's like, rowing, and this is something I was talking with Philip as well, and it's basically like, rowing's so hard to relate to because people make it impossible to relate to. Like, the coaches are sort of saying, don't share anything with anyone, like, don't tell anyone what you're up to, what you're training with, and what I kind of want to advocate for is letting people in, and that's like, stop gatekeeping the sport, basically, and like, letting people know, like, this is how you make like the best mates that you'll ever meet, because you're so like interactive with them, and sort of things like that, like being able to know that all your mates have got your back, and like, it's lifelong friends, and that sort of thing is something that I struggle to see you finding within other sports, and potentially in other things. Like, it's so hard to make it relatable when it's blocked out from so many sources. So I kind of just want to get people's stories and experiences out there, that people can enjoy and relate to, basically. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? It was a bit of a drivel, but
No, yeah, of course. No, and it is really important to get it out there. I think it's important to get it out there because it's a very niche sport, and
mm,
not many people get into it. You know, the only reason I tried. I mean, I didn't row, and I started rowing when I was 19, or
mhm,
maybe just before I was 19. And the only reason I started was because my dad had a rowing machine in the spare room when I
mm,
was a kid. Do you know what I mean? And I had a go on it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, well, I don't know, we didn't know what I did, but he was like, oh, okay." And I never started properly for whatever reason when I was younger. But when I went to uni, I was like, walking around the freshers fair, I was like, oh, I'll do that because I remembered that Dad said I might be okay at it,
mm.
and that was it. And then it was like I sort of was away, and
Yeah.
I mean,
I
my
think where
my kind of route into rowing was very different to a lot of people who rowed at school and stuff like that. So yeah.
you say that, but I hear that sort of story. Having done this podcast, I've heard that story so many times,
Mm.
and it sort of made me start to think that the idea that it's all guys that have come from private schools, and like we've both been at Brooks and things like that, and they're and sort of rode in at high levels, and it is obviously overwhelmed by people that have had sort of backgrounds that potentially sort of propel them in that direction. But equally, there's sort of 50-75% of the people have come from, I was lucky enough that there was a rowing machine in my garage, or I was lucky enough that like someone came back to my school and set up a club, or whatever it is. And I think there's just that gets completely missed out when they sort of talk to people at Oxford and Cambridge, and they're like, "Oh bloody hell, I've been watching the
Mm.
boat race from my townhouse on the
Yeah.
side of the Thames all my life," and it's like,
Mm.
I don't know about that, because that's sort of giving the image that it's those sort of people that are allowed to do rowing, and the people that aren't from that area watching the boat race from their front window on the side of the tideway. It's yeah, I think I want to try and get that same story of I got into rowing through fun, and they're sort of making the boys in the boat movie this winter, or they've done it and they're pushing it out this winter. And I think if you've read that book or read that story, like it's that same story again. It's a bunch of guys that got into rowing because it was like, oh, this is something that it'll keep me fit, it'll keep me strong, and it'll give me good mates. And I think that's the story that needs to be pushed out, rather than you need to be posh and it's so you can row with father when you're older. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I totally agree. I think it's just about I mean, for me personally, I remember the first time turning up at Brook. I mean, I loved rowing before that, but I rowed at club level and I wasn't with loads of people my age. Some really good friends, but I remember when the first time I went to Brooks and sort of just I don't know. I remember speaking to Harry Brightmore, and I and we were talking about me maybe going down, and then I spoke to Henry a little bit and a few emails and that, and I went down, and I think I can't really remember the first time I rode at Brooks, but I went down there, and I remember getting in the minibuses,
Mhm.
um, and there were I don't know who it would have been. It would have been I don't know Stanhope, George Eden, that kind of group, Joe Guppy and all that. Um, and it was just raucous in this minibus, and I was just sat there like, I'm at home. I get this.
Yeah.
Like this is my bag. I understand this.
Mhm.
So for anyone that's like rugby as well, I played a bit of rugby and I got that feeling. I played in
Mhm.
the forwards, and I loved that like pack mentality and the and rowing's the same. Rowing's like
Mhm.
that scrum. It's especially eights rowing. It's like you're like scrum down with another eight, and yeah, I think it's great. Rowing's not a it's not a gentleman's. Like there's a video on YouTube where someone says rowing's not a gentleman's sport, and it's not a gentleman's sport.
Mhm.
Um, it's quite it's quite rough and tumble in a sense, um, and I love that. I know that well, you probably love that too about it,
Yeah.
but it's you form such a special bond with the guys you row with because it's so physical. And especially at a program like Brooks, where it's pretty rough and ready at times,
And I think
it's even closer then.
in that sort of intensity as well, it allows you to be vulnerable with those people. And it's like, if someone's having a stinker and then, or like they're having a rough time, and then they go and do a half hour and they come off and they're mentally drained, they're physically drained, that's when you'll start to sort of speak up, I think. And that sort of almost gives you an opportunity. It's like, everyone, no matter what, you could be the mentally strongest person or the mentally weakest, but if you sort of take down that physical barrier, then suddenly everyone's sort of on a level playing field, I guess, because you're in a place where you're absolutely wrecked, and at the finish of a race, like, there are no barriers to what's said and what happens. Like, it's you get some raucous stuff going on, like you said, but it's like,
there's been some funny things said, I reckon, around the 1500-meter tree on the Brooks stretch.
Oh, definitely. And it's like that sort of, everyone then gets on the same level during a piece, because everyone reacts the same when they're absolutely binned. It's, I've got nothing left. There's nowhere in my lungs. There's nothing in my legs. I can't move, but somehow I'm still happy and I'm still enjoying myself because I'm with.
There's like a humility piece, isn't there, to rowing? I think and I think I enjoyed that part of it. I got it wrong sometimes towards the end of rowing, but there's that humility piece where you're just a small. I mean, Matt Hayward, I remember when he said at the Brooks dinner when he won that award, and he said, "I'm just a very small cog in a." It was something along the lines of, "I'm just a very small cog in this machine," and he kind of encapsulated what it means to row at Brooks, where no one's above anyone. It's just you turn up, you try hard, and you care about it. And if you do those things, you'll do well.
And the people around you will also do well. And I think that's what's so great about it. Like, the best person's always going to be in the same place as the worst person in the boat. Like, you're going to win or lose together.
Yeah, it's super special, isn't it? And there's obviously barriers getting into. I mean, going back to you saying about getting people wanting to turn up and join rowing. I mean, there's barriers to rowing at a high level, I think. But
definitely,
I mean, to row at a club level and to you can experience all these things in a club level. Just go to your club and go to Google your nearest rowing club. Go down, and there'll be loads of people down there that will want to help you and be happy to see you, and it just injects positivity into your life because you're part of something that's bigger than you. That's it for me, really. Like, that's how I see it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Well, I guess thanks very much for coming on and having that chat today. I think hopefully that's reached a few people that who needed to or wanted to hear that. And hopefully that's sort of given a few people the confidence to speak up as well. And I look forward to seeing you complete your challenge at the end of the month. And
I know we haven't really spoken about the challenge, have we?
But do you want to wrap up the challenge quickly? I think I saw recently you've already made a pretty decent amount of money towards your.
I think it's going all right. Yeah, it's weird. So the challenge is Project 633, or 633, half marathon every day for November. I haven't got a clue how it's going to go. I don't know what my calves are going to be like after 2 weeks of it, but we'll see. But yeah, just raising money for Movember. So Ben will post my Instagram link or whatever, my Movember link. But just trying to raise a bit of money for Movember and for my team, Bangers and Tash, great name. They are doing the Yorkshire Three Peaks 25th of November, I want to say. Anyway, you can find my team through there. But just, if you can, I don't know, donate £6.33. It's the same, it's a pint or a couple of coffees. Or if you, I know everyone's skint at the minute, it's really difficult, I know. I'm not, the money is secondary to me. If I can encourage people just to reach out to a mate that's quiet, or anyone really, because quite often loudest ones are the ones that feel the worst inside. Open up, maybe tell them how you're feeling and see what that sparks. So yeah, half a marathon every day for November, raising money for Movember. Yeah, that's it basically. So yeah, just have a look, share it about. If you can spare a bit of money, donate a bit of money, but there's no pressure. Just maybe just chatting to your mates, and looking out for your mates. That's all you can ask.
Yeah. I'll ask now. We're 2 days in. How are you feeling?
Oh, I ran this morning. I'm just getting the fueling wrong. I had a Domino's with Telly last night, so I didn't feel so great this morning, which was a mistake. So yeah, maybe I need to stick to the healthier stuff.
It's all just molecules, really, isn't it?
It's all molecules, mate. Yeah, it's weird. The carbs are funny. I don't really know how they're going to go. My body feels fine, and I don't. I'm fit enough to do it. I'm fit enough to run for a couple of hours a day, but it's just whether or not my body, my mechanics hold up. Being sort of 95 odd kilos, it's a lot of force going down through your legs, but I'll give it a crack.
Well, good luck. I look forward to seeing all your progress, and thanks anyone that's listening for listening.
Yeah, cheers for having me on, mate. Thank you.
Cheers.